Welcome, folks. Welcome to yet another edition of Travel Insights, brought to you by The Dope, India's leading digital travel media. Today, we have with us a leader and a torchbearer of the travel industry, Mrs. Jyoti Mayal. Mrs. Jyoti Mayal is a director at New Airways Travels New Delhi since 1980. She's a proven leader, a dynamic thinker with innovative management skills, which has helped New Airways grow, diversify, and blossom into an organization of global standards, which is highly respected by all in the industry. Since her early days in the trade, she had a burning desire to contribute her services and her expertise for the betterment of the travel trade and to raise the standards of the travel industry in India. It was this desire which drove her journey with Travel Agents Association of India, where she has held various posts since 2009, culminating in her being elected as president of the association in November 2019, a post which she holds today. Along with this, she is the vice chairperson of FAITH. She is also the chairperson of the Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council, THSC, which has been set up under the Ministry of Skill Development, Government of India. She has won various awards over the years. The list is so long that if I start listing it out, I think we'll run out of time. But needless to say, these awards are from prestigious international and domestic organizations, as well as from state governments of India, as well as Government of India itself. And all this for her contribution to the travel and tourism industry. Mrs. Mayal is a graduate from Delhi University and holds a diploma in travel and tourism. Welcome, Jyoti ji. Welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Amish. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dope.
So we'll go straight into it like we do with all our guests, people who've been in the industry for so long. Tell us about your journey over the last 40 years in the travel industry. What are the trends in the industry you have seen change over the years? And how has that affected your business as a travel agent, and also how you have adapted to these changes?
That's a pretty long question. It's going to take me 1 hour to revert. But before I say this, I must congratulate Dope along with the entire team, for this wonderful initiative, what you've started, and continuing to deliver in this lockdown period too. And especially you, Amish. And I still remember my first interview with you 2 years back at the Satay. And I was saying, what do you want me for that? What do you want me for? In that stall. He said, come, I want to talk to you. I was wondering what it was, and it turned out to be the Dope episode. And I'm very happy where Dope has reached today, And of course, I like to appreciate Vitasta, who's not on the screen today with us, but, she's been working from the back all the time, available all the time, connecting with us and the industry. So I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I really congratulate and I wish you more success. Yes, coming back to the industry, which you said, I'll start with your first question. With so many questions put to me, I'm going to forget most of them, but I'll start with my life. So I started the industry. I joined this industry, like you said, nearly 4 decades ago. And I was a novice. I didn't even know, like I've said this earlier many times, that even a travel agent existed in this world. I was very young. I was just 19 years old. I didn't even have any clue how does one travel. I used to get my tickets at home, and that's how I used to travel with my parents. But when I met my husband, he was absolutely the top of the industry, running the largest and the most accoladed travel agency in this country, with various, like you said, absolutely from all airlines, we were certified. We were IATA agent. Of course, we got IATA much later, and we are literally the 14th number of IATA or something in this country. So it goes a long way back. Wow. I was very young, like I said. But what happened was that I got very glad, and absolutely it was the most glamorous industry which I walked into after the film industry. And before I came to Delhi and I met him, I was in Bombay with a circle of film stars and all those models, and all they were friends of mine. Some of them studying with me in college, especially the big guys, children were studying with me in college in Bombay. So it was a wonderful experience. When I came here, it was like parties, luxury travel started, luxury hotels started, award ceremonies. And of course, it was with success. And that's how I moved forward. Saying that, that's what I said. But coming back to the business, what was different then and different here? Because I think that's most important, seeing the relevance of time today, because COVID has struck us very badly. And we are still trying to see what is it that we did well in our previous tenure and what are we doing well now and what should we be learning from our mistakes, because I think this is a time to learn from our past mistakes so that we actually grow up more, we do our businesses the right format. So business was very different. We all know that IATA was what IATA. We had to have ground floor offices. We had heavy safes. We had paper ticket stocks. We had ABCs, the blue and the red for fare calculations and the routings. We had no technology. We had no GDS. We had paper manifests. We could change the names if I got along with you at the airport and offload someone and onload someone. And we had a lot of trust with there was a mutual trust between the airlines and the agent, which comes out, it was very loud at that times. And on top of that, we had a huge, good credit system with the IATA, with all the airlines. There was no really IATA as APJC, what is today, or the VSP, which is today. So we had a great communication and a relationship with the airlines. We had 9% commission and much beyond that. Now there's a huge paradigm shift. It's huge. It has evolved to electronic tickets. There are mobile apps. There's virtual reality. There are virtual platforms like we are talking today. So it is technology to the T. And the progress is super. But sadly, the relationships are no longer there. The commitments and the continuity is very weak in the industry, and that is actually where we are struggling with. So our relationship with all our stakeholders has changed. It's evolved. It is actually, if you ask me, maybe technology is very good, but our relationships have deteriorated. And that's what I feel is one thing, and especially in a country like India, where we still have the joint family system. We have bondings with our relatives, relations, society. We are very society conscious, all those things, but that business link is literally gone. So that is what is the main thing, because I think business jobs or the human outlook has changed where the business is concerned. And that's why I think we are suffering more to it than we could have ever thought about it would happen. In the past, I could never imagine it would be like this today,
Right.
So I think that is what it's actually about. And that is how I actually compare both the eras and say what is wrong. And that is why I started with saying that we need to learn from our past to say what is it that we need to adopt and adapt to in the future or the present to see that we have a much successful, more business, outlook for the going time.
So basically, yeah, I guess what you're saying is that everything else we could adapt to, we could help grow the business, but we've really lost out on that personal touch, which of course I fully agree with you.
Absolutely.
Now coming, you've been associated with TiE for such a long time, having been the chairperson of the Northern region for 2 terms, MC member for 2 terms, the Honorary Secretary General, and now the President. What drives you to be so passionate about TiE? In fact, most of the office bearers, managing committee members are all so passionate, so driven that, I have to ask you, what makes TiE so special?
I think TiE is a very special body anyway. I feel that, it's, of course, it is the largest, oldest nodal body, which we keep repeating, and we keep saying that on every platform we're on. And I'm very proud to be a TiE member. And I'm very proud to be a member of an association and no other association as an active member at all. Because I feel it's literally a mother association. And if I'm a member of the mother association, I don't need to be, any other association as such to support any cause or any passion of mine, which I have with this industry. And that is what has brought me here where I am, because I am passionate about TiE. And you said the team is totally passionate. And I think it comes because we all together, we keep ourselves, and you're one of them, and we keep each other motivated, and we have confidence in each other, and we are actually moving together. So that is what I feel, because I think the biggest strength of TiE is its democratic way of working and its members. And that I say very proudly, because we are an association which we have total democracy. We have a voice, we have a right to voice our concerns, and we have a right to follow it through and see that it gets through to whatever it is. Achievement comes later. You need to start practicing what you believe in, and you need to start investing in your time, energy, your thought processes, your vision. And that is what TiE is all about. We've had a vision over the years, and we continue that vision, and that is what passion is all about. And also another thing which I always also say is that, it's a association which has always looked at the betterment of the of the industry. And when we as TIE members actually, start working, we don't say it's only TIE members. We work for the industry. Yesterday also someone was telling me, okay, you're going to be doing this. Is it for only TIE or is it going to be for something for the entire industry? I said, when it comes back to giving it back to society, you need to give back wholly. You can't be protective about something and say, no, it's only for me. That's being selfish. That's not being selfless. So whatever changes we are looking at, whatever way of workings we are looking at, we certainly want that everyone should be a part and parcel of it. So that is why it's been driven. And, we have seen such good times. And that is why we feel more hurt in certain ways, and we demand much more because we have seen it evolve. Like I said, 69 years back, we came into existence, and we've been struggling with just 4 people starting the association and now carrying it down. And we have been leaders, and we continue to be leaders, and that is the only way one can really move forward, motivate everyone, and achieve whatever you want. And that is what, during the COVID-19, the entire 2 years we've been doing. And I'm very happy to say that, that today TIE is reached another level. And it is under this team of 1921 that we've actually acquired another status in the government with all our stakeholders, and they hear us. They don't just brush us away with saying, okay, we've heard this from every association. We are called, we are invited to platforms just to share our comments. It could be anything. I could never have thought that TIE would be involved in so many aspects. Could be tourism, could be Niti Aayog, could be Ministry of Commerce. Where till now have we ever connected with Ministry of Commerce? Today we have Ministry of Commerce connecting with us to say, please share your views. We have rail tourism coming, we have railways coming in, we have the shipping ministry coming in, we have the transport ministry coming in. So all this keeps you more motivated that people are finding TIE more and more relevant, more and more in the leadership role. And that is what, that's my vision for TIE. And I would love to see that we achieve our goals, of course. But that is what keeps us very going, passionate also.
The passion really comes up across when you talk about that. But you had barely taken over the reins of the association as its president when the pandemic struck. You obviously must have had thoughts and ideas about what to do over the next 2 years. But the onset of the pandemic would have made you change your course completely. You would have probably thought of how to bring about growth and prosperity in the trade. And suddenly you were looking at pure survival of the trade. How did you manage to do that? And how quickly did you and TIE, of course, act once the pandemic struck? What were the kinds of interactions you had with the government, and what kinds of support did you seek from the government?
So I'll come down. What TIE has done a lot actually in this years. And I say it very proudly because I think I have a wonderful team. And team really matters, even sitting at home, sitting in these 4 walls, one does have their own constraints. I'm not a technology person. And when I was first told to come on Zoom, it was like, my God, how do I do it? I'm sorry, I didn't even have I have a very good laptop at home to say I'm going to start working. And I know how I went from pillar to post to acquire a laptop. And then I started those learnings. But it is all teamwork, That's when I said, someone told me how to use the laptop, someone told me how to log on to Zoom. So I'm just giving you a small example that this is what teamwork really does. And those were the challenges that came. The first thing with COVID happened to me, that how do I really adapt myself? But it was a quick adaptation because obviously it's just that you haven't been doing these things, and we never knew Zoom is going to be such places, or Microsoft Team will come out, and all these virtual platforms come out. But yes, the biggest challenge was the lockdown. As for refunds, we have gone through real hell because we were sitting at home trying to fight with the airlines to see how our members' money would be protected. And again, when I say members, I do mean members, but it comes for the industry because it's not that one member will get a refund and the industry will not get a refund. So all this started happening. So we started motivating our members because they were, the first few weeks of the COVID, I think, were okay. Lots of people, when I spoke to them initially, were saying, yeah, it's there. It's going to finish. It's 1 month. It's 2 months. Okay, it's a holiday. It's good. We could never give time to our families. We are doing that. This is a common thing that came across from all members and the entire society. But as time moved on and we knew we were stuck, and the seriousness of the COVID came across, that how it's going to affect our lives, how are the businesses demographic going to change, how the tourist destinations are going to change, what is it that we'll adapt. And of course, we started losing friends and family. I don't think there's anyone in this country who's not been affected by that. So there were a lot of things that we were juggling with and not knowing what really our members are going through. Of course, business and personal lives and lives keep continuing simultaneously but they do weigh on each other. So the cash crunch came in, no business came in. And we had to keep approaching the government to support because we didn't know who to look to. We've never been through a pandemic like this. But I must say, before I get onto that we are a very resilient industry. And as the travel, tourism, hospitality sector is very, very resilient. And also, believe you me, people in India especially, I have seen have a very short memory also. Means they like to forget the difficult times and move on. Because that is what really resilience is. Because you need to just block out the bad times and say, hey, I need to survive. My family needs to survive. We need to move on. So the time at that was that they needed to be motivated. And of course, you are aware that even for that motivation, we even got, Gurudev Sri to come and speak to us to say, how can we be motivated in these times beyond going to the government? So there was no one we left in the government. Like I said, we were the first people to write to APJC and IATA to say, please protect our refunds, because we knew we foresaw that challenge coming into the industry, that the airlines are going to stop working and they will not be able to give our refunds. So even before the total lockdown happened, we had already written to APJC. We were already talking to airlines. We had already started talking to the low-cost airlines because we knew this money is going to go in the kitty and not really be able to use it. So there were a lot of things that we started doing. Of course, we approached the Ministry of Tourism, like I said, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Niti Aayog, Reserve Bank, Ministry of Finance, Health, MEA. So we were in continuous dialogue with them. The only thing that hit me was, after all this that we did, and we really burned our midnight oil, if you can say it that way, to make these letters and give presentations to the government, because the government was also totally at a loss. I don't blame them, because somehow in our country, and I say that very loudly, tourism is a part of us, but tourism is not also a part of us. It's not the important thing in our country. Yes, we know every 10th person is employed in this industry, because it's a huge value chain, right from someone who's selling crafts or making crafts to the rickshaw wala, to the scooter wala, to the transport company, and then people who are flying. So it's a huge, huge value chain. So we know, but to get that data, because the government didn't have any, to get that data, how many are we? I can only talk about my association, that we are 3,000 members, but how can I talk about other associations? So the relevant data, who should be given the reliefs and moratoriums, how should they be given? Because we're not structured that way. And for that, when you spoke about earlier, and I missed out that opportunity to say that, my first vision, even when we took over as the chair of president of TIE and with the entire team, was that we want an industry status. It's not something what we started saying today, but today we feel that need is much more, because we do need that. We need that so much so that we can have a standardized way of working. People keep asking me, why do you want this industry status? What is it going to give you? They don't realize there's so much of standardization, the right protocols of working, the money structure, under what ministry are we really going to be taken care of? Today, I'm totally confused, that who is going to be looking after us? Is it tourism? Is it aviation? Is it commerce? Is it finance ministry? And am I supposed to be running pillar to post? And this is exactly what we did in the lockdown. Yes, we did get to achieve a few things, because when they started opening, of course, our letters and our representations to the government are all, they are all over, and the whole industry knows about it. So I don't want to repeat that and just say on that. But our representation started at least achieving some results. We started telling our members to register in MSMEs, so that they can achieve something better. We started telling them to register on Ministry of Tourism website under the travel agents, if not the tour operators. We started them to register themselves at different portals, and that is what our first thing was, that we need to re-establish them. Because we knew that after COVID, we will have to reboot, we'll have to restructure, we'll have to re-strategize our entire business. And unless we again have our basic correct, because we will be starting business from ground zero, again, we'll be where we were a year back or 2 years back, So we need to really restructure ourselves, and that was very important. And even when the world started opening and India started opening, our first was how do we travel? Even the Ministry of Civil Aviation was at a loss. I'm repeating myself here to say that TIE, and I say that very proudly, was the first to come out with a company called Roche and bring RT-PCR testing on board, so that we knew that we could get ourselves tested and travel, so that there should not be a lull in the travel business. Of course, there had to be a lockdown. There is no two ways about it. We were all in a learning stage. We had to take baby steps and cautious steps to move around. So that is how we've been actually, even air bubble flights. We were the first people to write to Ministry of Civil Aviation that we want, air bubbles to start. Let's start in some way. Now we are today advocating that beyond air bubbles, we are advocating for commercial flights. But it's a growing period. So we need to keep doing this. And we have to keep pressurizing the government to do this. That is the only way we will move forward. Of course, now our demands are much more, which I'm surely you'll ask me and I will comment on that, what all we want now in the future to grow better. But this is I think the best part that came out was the virtual platform. That this way, you and me could interact with each other. We all could interact with each other. This is the first time I think in history it's happened that we've had 2 or 3 meetings with all our members, across India, and let them ask questions, let them, ask for answers, whatever we can do. And I would also say that TIE is very transparent in their working. And we believe in answering everyone. We're not trying to hide, because like I said, it's no one's doings. We are also learning as you are learning. And it's also my bread and butter as it's yours. So we're all suffering in the same boat. We're all sailing in the same boat, and we have to drown or survive together. So we have to work in that way to say that, we get the best out of this government. And that is what we've been doing continuously in the 1.5 years. Of course, we've done a lot of skilling. We've done a lot of educational programs. We've done continuous webinars to educate our members so that they don't sit at home and, get into a backseat, and also for their staff, because we know unemployment has been the maximum in this time. So we had to look after our staff also. And all this needed to be done. And putting it in words in just 5-10 minutes is so difficult, because it took us 1.5 years to do it and achieve it. But today, I think our members, when most of them connect with me, they're very happy about it. At least we were there to handhold them. We were at least there to guide them. I'm sure I don't have the money to give them. I don't have finances to give them. I don't have business to give them. But at least I have stood beside them. And we as a team have been available to them 24/7. So that is the main thing, I think, which has come out from the entire thing and how we are working together.
So now there is a bit of an uptick in tourism. International borders have opened up. India has opened up with e-tourist visas and everything being granted. So there should be a further improvement in the travel and tourism industry. What initiatives is TIE taking to revive tourism in India? And how are you guiding? And what is your guidance to your members to help them during this revival phase, to make the most of the revival phase?
Amish, I keep telling all our members, and I'm sure you've heard it so much, so often, but I'm going to repeat myself here by saying there are going to be a lot of opportunities, because I always believe crisis does always bring opportunities. It's how the members need to grasp it. There will be ways you need to change your business, because business trend is going to change. To get back to your old clients is going to be a challenge. To get into new avenues would maybe be the easiest at this time, and that's what I keep saying, that there are a lot of things that one can do, especially where tourism is concerned. When I like, that's the first question I'm always asked when I go to attend a meeting. I was asked, when I used to go to attend a meeting, hey, you are only a ticketing association. That's something which came out very loud when TIE started moving, because all these years we've only been focusing on that as our real, let's say, the butter part. Forget the bread, that's the butter part. But I think the whole thing has changed. The demographics have changed, and we've seen that. It's not happened today. It's been happening since the last couple of years. When IATA removed the commissions, we knew we were at zero commission. When IATA removed credit per market, we were literally on a weekly payment. When we started having cash crunches, the corporates started paying us, we knew there was a real change in the whole environment. So we were literally adapting ourselves to those things. Well, if we didn't, then that's the reason we are at a loss at a lot of places, if someone didn't. So we were evolving, and the members have always been guided to do that. Now you do it or don't do it, it's up to you to do it. And the same thing I repeat today. there are opportunities in tourism, so many, I can't tell you. You have to keep that as now your butter and make your ticketing as your bread, so that they are actually, you can have them together and really have success throughout your life. I think that is the way I would say. And then coming to the tourism products, that is the reason we are doing a lot of MOUs in Thai. If you've noticed, we've done with Maldives, we are doing with Nepal very soon. We've already done with Sri Lanka, we've done with Kazakhstan, we've done with various countries and even domestic states, where domestic business was not our core business. But today, COVID has taught us that we need to invest more in domestic, because if something like this, God forbidding, ever happens, we at least have our own domestic market to play at. So you should not put all your eggs in one basket. You need to diversify a little bit to say that you can balance out your life and successes. And you see all the top industrialists do that. They look into a lot of industries together. I mean, if they're in one, they'll tie up with the industries which are at least connected to it. That's the way we need to look at it. We are into international, but we need to play on the domestic. And I'm very happy to note that a lot of our members have actually diverted it in. Of course, Ministry of Tourism played a very good role to do that Dekho Apna Desh, which I think was very creditable. And it was again with our daily interaction with them that we told them, let's get on to virtual reality. Let's start getting on to virtual experiences. And they are doing that also. So there was a huge connect that came in. And that is now why today Thai has made a very good standing and a name for itself with the Ministry of Tourism. And we are involved in each policy that is being made. Could be from the special tourism zones, could be for the national tourism policy, could be heli tourism that's coming out, could be rail tourism that's coming out, maybe that's cruise tourism that's coming out, it's wellness. We are the ones who have given our inputs very, very strongly, very, very relevantly, looking at what our members' need is, looking at how I would be doing business so that I can support the entire members. So when I go and tell them to do something, I always keep in mind my own business. Will I be able to adapt? Is it an ease of business? If not, then this should not be there. So because the entire team actually right now is very involved in their own business. I've noticed that. It's not that we are not the ones in the business and we are just there for the sake of being in the tourism industry, but we are involved. And that's why we know where the shoe really bites. And we can actually be effective in that sense. So talking to MOCA in one way, and talking to MOT in one way, and also talking to shipping. I've now been talking to the shipping also for cruises. And like I said, I've been involved with railway. The railway minister just called us a couple of days back, which has never happened in the thing. He said, come and tell me which trains you would like to run, which sectors would you like to run? Would you, as a matter of fact, I gave them a proposition that suppose my Thai members would like to invest in one train, because the policy that we are trying to make is really like this, that we could take the train from one sector to the other sector seasonal wise in the whole year. Wow. Suppose I tell all my 3,000 members to invest amount and we can take a train for a year. Does this add value to my members? So does a helicopter add value to my members? Suppose I feel this is something which maybe we can have 4 helicopters. It is your mind thing. You need to move forward. You need to think aloud. You need to take a risk also, but that risk will come collectively with everyone's mind. And I'm not saying that Thai is here to make money. Thai is absolutely a body which is not going to make money. But these are the opportunities also I'm looking for my members to take. And that is why I feel we need to invest in this a lot. And there are huge opportunities. Could be rural tourism, could be wellness, could be adventure. And there is so much of it in our own country. Of course, like I told you, we've already signed international. We will be doing that. We had a lot of Maldives interaction when Maldives was opening. With Dubai Expo, we've tied up with Dubai Expo. We are doing road shows with them so that they can encash this, opportunity to send more people to Dubai wherever they can. And of course, with Ministry of Civil Aviation, we are always talking about flights also. So it's not that we are not taking in all aspects of tourism, because I always believe tourism, no one product can stand out where tourism is concerned. It has to be many, many products into one kitty, into one basket to actually make it a full-fledged industry.
Now, there's been a historical change in the functioning of the APJC in India, with the associations getting to chair the APJC meetings on a rotational basis. In fact, you were the first agency representative ever to chair an APJC meeting. So what do you feel could be the advantages for the trades with this development, with the fact that agency representatives could chair? And what do you feel are the important matters which need to be taken up at the APJC practically immediately?
Okay. Yes, I think it was a very proud moment for TIE when I chaired, and it was a consensus coming from the airlines, because it has to be unanimous, literally, that they agree that someone from the passenger side would be on the chair. And for all these years, it's only been the airline. Not that we have anything against the airlines; they are our partners for sure. Yeah, sorry, I think it just went away. They are our partners for sure. Airlines are our partners, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I've always been actually reflecting back when I say that our relationships were so strong. I say continue to say that, because when you're working together and your goal is one, it could be filling aircrafts, it could be doing tourism, it could be filling ships. You have to work on a mutual partnership and trust. And that is the first thing when we brought that perspective in front, that we want to chair it and why only the airline side. That was the first thing we said, that there's nothing against anyone. It is how that we want a 50-50% relationship. We want a relationship which is strong from both footholds, so that not only the airlines are, getting the benefit, but even the passengers and even our customer and even we work collectively together. So the airlines agreed, which was, and they were very happy to actually support us. And of course, our partner association, TAFE, was also very happy that they were supporting us and to be the first chair. So it became a collective, understanding, and we did achieve it. It took us 2 meetings, but we did achieve it. And I'm very happy about it, because I feel at least now we are on the same page. At least that we are willing to look at it from that point of view, that, hey, you are not superior, I'm not superior, we are partners. And that is how I believe it should be. Saying that, I'll always say that, when I said about old times, we used to have, why was ITA or BSP, why did BSP come in? Because it was just one check that you needed to give, okay? Why is ITA relevant? We have to see, if is ITA relevant, then the relevance has to be brought forward to say, okay, ITA is relevant because of these things for our membership, and BSP is not the only relationship we are wanting for. We were giving checks, individual checks to all airlines, and we had a very good relationship with them. We didn't have any capping system, so we were very happy. So why did we adopt ITA or the BSP or the APJC to come into India? So why? Because we wanted much more beyond that relationship, and that is what we want to build on. And that's the first thing that we should be building on, more opportunities from each other to have a proper stimulus growth towards, the sector, totally sector. That, of course. Secondly, of course, like we've been saying, and we've gone through these bad times, that we've had many airlines. And I mean, it's not a secret. We've had Kingfisher, we've had Jet Airways, we've had a lot of airlines who've gone out of business, and how they've actually hurt our business and us, because I sometimes feel, I keep earning for 10 years, and then some airline comes, he takes away all my money and I start again. And then again, some airline comes after 2 years, and again, I start my business again. So is this business viable? Should the industry be like this, that every few years you go back to, what should have been, what money I should have been now enjoying? Actually, if you ask me, in this time of the COVID, like all the top industrialists are, we should have been enjoying that money, not being really, concerned about how I'm going to survive for the next 2 years, because I would have had a subsequent and a substantial kitty to it that is with me. But because of these airlines, I've lost so much in the years. And of course, with challenges and catastrophe like SARS or the war, so that every time I've made some money, I've come back to ground zero or ground 20, if not zero, And so how do I keep myself model as a good model to work forward? So this is something which can only come collectively, that how our money is going to be protected. And that's a very, very important thing. There has to be systems to come into place. Our money, what we are doing with the airlines, has to be protected. How ITA does it, it reinsures that money or insures that money, actually should not be our concern, if you ask me, because they are anyway spokesperson of the airlines. They have always been spokesperson of the airline, and not that I'm saying it on my own. We've heard the chief of ITA say that and reiterate that, we are for the airlines. So now we have to say that they have to be for us. There is no two ways. If
Or
you
at
are
least
not
work
there for
together.
us, sorry, I withdraw myself. I will not be a part of ITA if you're not for me. So that's the first structure. You have to protect me and my cash flow, my refunds, my way of working with the airlines, the ease of business coming in. Why am I fighting for capping when I've given you a bank guarantee? Let it be your issue to have the, whatever money I'm giving, I'm saying it in simple language that everyone understands, that whatever security I'm given, according to that security, I'm allowed to play my cards in the market. Whom I'm dealing with is not the point. Your risk should not be more than the money or guarantee I'm giving you. That's so simple. So if my capacity is selling is whatever amount, X amount, and I'm doing business of X amount, and I've given you money of X amount, it should be adopted by all airlines. Why do they have to ask me, no, we can't give you ticket stock, we can't give you a GDS system coming in, we can't give you that. Hey, we are your partners, treat us like one. So I think these are the few things which need to come out very together, and we need to sit down together to make these policies more stronger, which should be a win-win situation in the long run. I don't believe that they should lose money, but I don't want to lose mine too, for sure. And if I don't have ease of business in my own business, I do not want to be a part of ITA. I do not want to be part of any statutory body like such. I might as well get another news body to work for myself and my businesses.
Now, you are also the chairperson of the Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council under the Ministry of Skill Development, Government of India. What are your plans for the THSC, and what kind of support and assistance should students and institutions related to travel, tourism, and hospitality look forward to from THSC?
So I tell you, the Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council, I think, is a wonderful platform. Yes, we are still having challenges because of COVID-19, but we all also know that every 9th person or the 10th person in this country is employed, like I said initially, in this sector. And it's a huge sector. We all know that 39.8 million jobs actually are in 2019 were from this sector. So saying all this, I'm going to come back to this, that seeing the change demographic of a traveler and a tourist, we need to skill the young ones coming in into a format where they can be adopted in this industry. You know what? I'm on the lot of universities I go to speak to because of THSC, and I have noticed that they are very demotivated. They are much more demotivated than us. We've still seen sometimes, so we are living on that. They are going to get into this industry and they've seen this happen. They are not sure should they get into this industry in the future. And if that doesn't happen, proper skilling doesn't happen, you will be devoid of the good skills in any employee. And who's going to suffer? It's again the industry that's going to suffer, because you need young minds, you need young people, you need breath of fresh air coming from these to give you new ideas, new technology things, which we may not be able to adopt so easily. And as the world changes, evolves, grows into a better, tourism sector, and it is going to happen because tourism is a very strong foothold of any country. And I say that, and especially India, which it's got a plethora of everything. There is no other country which has all the seasons. Some countries are cold, some countries are hot. We have the beautiful seasons. We have beautiful fauna, we have flora, we have beaches. There is nothing we don't have. So why aren't we there where we should be exactly at that state? And this is where we need to motivate our new people who are coming into this. So the first thing I say that very strongly when I say that there's something called hard skills and there's something called soft skills. Tourism is something I always talk about. Tourism is all about experiences, and tourism will always remain human to human connect. That's why this business is never going to die, and this business will never just become on a technology platform. I refuse to agree to it that this is only going to be selling through OTAs. No, technology is only an enabler, which will always be there. It's the amount of honey you put into your milk or your drink is how sweet it becomes. That's a different aspect. But to say that OTAs are here going to be staying in the agents, I think now after COVID, it's more relevance of the brick and mortar travel agents, because they need a face. Everyone needs that consolation, that handholding. So they are soft skills and these are hard skills which we need to actually also reskill into our employees who are currently working us, so that they don't become redundant, tomorrow's world. They also need to have a family to feed. So we need to also, as TI, have been trying to do that a lot. And the THSC has got a very good support. So the few things which I say very loudly is customer service is something which they need to know, and especially after the change demographic. They need to, of course, networking with client and relationships is something they need to develop more and more. They need to have communication skills, because that is more required after COVID. They should be having flexibility of time, which we have seen work from home, adaptability. We've seen how you have to adapt yourself to different environment while you've sat at home. And this could continue for a very long time. Work from home culture is here to stay, because people are going to keep cutting costs till the time they don't come to the pre-COVID or maybe the pre-COVID era, because they have lost a lot and they need to recoup and recover from that. So there is a lot of things that need to come in. Tech savviness, of course, is not, no one is going to survive without tech savviness. And like I said, it's the biggest enemy. Creativity, innovation, these are critical thinking, soft skills are the things that are going to really be focused on. And with the government and with the Ministry of Skill Development, we are getting into these forms that we need to run parallel courses with them. And also, of course, I always say digital coding skills, emotional intelligence is going to be needed much way going forward. So it's not only skilling, it is reskilling, multi-skilling, which the future generation is going to need. And that is going to be a very important part of us. And that is what we at THSC are driven. We are quickly, we work with something like 200 quality packs. And we've now, again, applied for new ones. We've already got 114 approved by the government. We are reskilling the whole model. We are telling the universities to adapt the new model so that when they come out, firstly, they are motivated, and then they have the correct skills that they will be absorbed. But just let me, just a short thing which I like to say, there is a study on this that now going in the future, after every 4 to 5 years, you will find everything changing of what is needed in your employee. So the youngsters who are coming in need to keep adapting and educating themselves continuously. Okay. They just cannot let it go like we did. We did our ticketing 20 years back. We are still happy to, technology is taken. No, you will be judged by your knowledge and your emotional intelligence and your IQ going forward. And that is how we need to train them. Like we always say, the driver who receives you at the airport should have all the skills to be the best ambassador of your country, the best tourist guide of your country. And we've seen that happening. But those things are still not in India. But now we have to go beyond all those basic soft skills and move much more forward. And that's what we are doing, actually. And that is how we plan to move forward in THSC. I'm sure we will reach there because we are there quite a lot.
Yes, that's a great initiative. Another new initiative from your end is the establishment of the Women in TI, or WIT, which is open to all women members of the industry. What was your thought process behind starting WIT, and what is your vision for WIT?
Okay, so my main vision has always been empowering women. And I think I stand by it. So, and actually, someone remarked the other day also, just a few days back, because my Facebook page still has my management committee, the entire management committee, the team that won in 1921, with me in the center. And they said, there's no woman. So I said, so it's a joke, it's a joke that keeps circulating. And I really felt that, since the time I've been in this travel business, I was a working woman all my life. I used to go to parties so many times because we were, like I said, the highest accredited, applauded, getting maximum awards from any airline. So we, as a couple, my husband and myself, were always invited to every party. And when we used to go to the party, and so many times it used to happen, they used to invite one person from the travel trade, and couples only for the top agencies. Even in those top agencies, most of the time, as a working woman, So I used to be the only working woman, and rest of the women were involved, or they were involved on the finance side, or not really in the leadership roles or in the front roles. Or you had people who were working at a level on the ticketing side, as the CEO of they were very selective. And I used to always say, why I'm the only woman, and why am I always, then the men used to get on cracking the jokes, and I used to be looking at their face and say, what do I do? I should look here, there, and I used to move around and say, what do I do? Because men, after some time, I'm saying this so loudly on a platform. After some time, they do get onto the jokes and the drinks and have fun, which I think the women now get together also are doing the same. But it's just that when there's a lone woman there. And then I also felt that somehow the men, I'm not blaming the men for it. It's a culture. It's our society which has been driven this way. And that's why now we are growing out of it. We are especially the youth, all women are working. But somehow I don't still see that same strength in our industry. We have women in hospitality, but where? In housekeeping. We may be having them on the counter, but again, that's where the strength is. So I always felt that we need to empower the women in the travel and hospitality industry much beyond, and not only in urban India, but also rural India, because that is where our strength is coming from. And another thing which I always believed in is you need to create that environment, where women can learn, help each other, and flourish to become more successful leaders in their own capacity for the future. And that is required. If I have more women today in this industry joining in with the initiative of what TiE has done, that's why I didn't limit it to TiE. I did women in TiE and travel. So I could encompass all the women who are wanting to come up. I don't want to limit it to TiE because I think women need to be taken up on a very different magnitude than only TiE members. And that's why I did this, because I want more women to come in front, because when a woman empowers another woman, they will grow much better and quicker. More women coming into this industry means safer tourism. Safer tourism means a safer country. Safer country means that people start coming in. It's not with inhibitions that India is an unsafe country, because that is a perception outside. Though we don't have any issues. And every country has this part of the world where you can't go in. Every country has a dark corner where you can't travel alone or something. But why is India brought more into the focus? Because I think we need more women's strength. We need more women bus drivers. We need more taxi drivers. We need everyone. We need craft bazaars where women run. We want them to become entrepreneurs in their own right. So there's so much to do that, I think it was needed, and I really wanted to get it in. And I've from your across this panel or platform also, I'm going to request any woman who's hearing me today, please join in. It's a selfless thing. We need to give back to the society and, do our best part of life. I think that is very much important.
So your passion for this also is really showing, but it's great to hear. I agree. Women empowerment is probably the need of the hour. Now, finally, before we wrap up, what, in your personal opinion, is the outlook for the travel, tourism, and hospitality sector for the short term, say the next 6 months, the medium term, say up to 2 years, and the long term? And what is the message you would like to send out, not only to members of TiE, but to everyone who is part of this sector?
See, I would say for short term, I would still say, please invest in your domestic tourism. I think we need to be very, very vocal for local. And that is something I say that because I want to cover the entire gambit of right from buying local to selling local to, delivering local to exploring local. And why I say that also, because I'll just give a small example here. America is a huge country, from one end to the other. 70%, last number what I had read was that nearly still 58% of the Americans don't have a passport, and they do not know that there is anything beyond America. They only live in the country, travel in the country, and they're very happy with it. But somehow we've missed that opportunity. And I say that we need to make that grow. And that's what inclusive is. It need to be sustainable and inclusive growth of tourism industry to take everyone together and grow. Because that is the only way this country will flourish in tourism. And for long term, of course, we need to explore more markets. We need to have the right protocols in place. Though today only I was speaking to someone in UNWTO and I was told that there's a huge chance that, let's keep our fingers crossed, that by next year, mid next year or end of next year, COVID will be eradicated. So that's a wonderful thought process that came from someone very senior up in WHO himself. And they are actually going to be announcing that maybe, if the way we've had a festive season and they don't see any spike happening, though some city countries are still spiking, but if this doesn't happen, that means we are going past that stage. So business will come back to normal. In the longer time and for building new processes, I would say coordinated policies, collaborated policies, restructuring of yourself. And I say this very strongly, Amish, again and again. Please look into your past. Please do not build and burn your bridges again. Look into the future. Don't always think that everyone is your competitor. Work together. There is enough for everyone in this world. Become a partner to each other, but don't sign blindly to any document. Look into your contracts. I think those are the things which I really need to keep saying to not only my members or TIE members, but the entire industry. Let's not commit the mistakes and again bring the industry back to a struggle. Let's build on better ways of working. And TIE also, when we were talking to Mocha and the ministers and a lot of people, I said this, we have missed the opportunity to become the biggest, largest tourist hub. We were the focal point between the East and the West with the flights, which they are doing in Singapore or Dubai or even Hong Kong have done. India could be a huge hub for business, We have missed that. We had missed that opportunity. Today, I think we've got that opportunity again. If played well, I'm sure we can still make India the largest hub to give people more opportunities and make it a very strong country to move forward. So we need to look into each other, travel the best. I would say for your customers, I'll just add, I think you need to do a lot of marketing, which we are also forcing the Ministry of Tourism to do today. Because marketing has to be done in a way that people feel that get confidence, they gain confidence. The consumer needs confidence today more to travel abroad or with proper coordinated and collaborated, like I said, coordinated way of working between countries, between states. So unilateral policies, unified policies is what is needed actually. Coming from the government and spreading it across that there is one policy of travel and tourism. Let's take it around the world. Let's take it to our country and travel seamlessly. And of course, the largest being that take care of your cash. It runs away very quickly. Take care of your finances. Only don't start paying your customer. Don't start just laying out the red carpet, thinking where it's going to hurt you tomorrow. Because you need to fend for yourself and reset your own businesses. So we need to reboot and rethink your business and move into it.
So that's it. So thank you. I think that's a very optimistic note and a very strong message on how to take care of oneself, collaborate to grow. And I'm sure the industry will bounce back. So thank you very much, Jyotiji. It was a pleasure.
I'm very sure about it.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's so nice talking to you. So it's just that whenever I'm asked to speak, I always just I don't really look into what's going to happen. I just feel that these things should be available for us as an industry, And one more thing which I have requested the government, and I'm working towards is that if we get an industry status in the concurrent list, of course, because it can only be done in the concurrent list, I hope there'll be a national tourism fund to look after our future needs. And that is something I truly believe we should do. And besides, of course, talking about insurances on the tickets, which we have been, we've been saying that since 2 years, how we protect our money from the airlines and airlines going bust. So we all need to work collaboratively to see that all this is achieved. And thanks to you, I'm again here. And I hope I've answered all what you wanted me to, and I hope people who are hearing me are happy and satisfied.
The next time around, we'll meet once again in person and have an interview with you. But thank you so much for today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah.
And for all our viewers out there, we hope you enjoyed the show. And please don't forget to click on like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, take care.
Thank you, Amish. Thank you so much. God bless. Namaskar.
Thank you.